The message came at 3:17 a.m., rattling Emily Carter out of a restless, half-dreaming sleep. Her phone buzzed once, then again, then stopped, as if whoever called already regretted reaching out. She blinked groggily, heart thumping, the screen burning through the dark. Hollow's Edge Police Department. A name she hadn't seen in years. She hesitated, then answered with a trembling breath. "Miss Carter, I'm sorry to inform you," the officer said, voice low, heavy, as if choosing each word carefully. "Your father, Samuel Carter, he's passed away." Emily sat up straight, her fingers curling into the blanket. "What? No, we haven't spoken in—" "I know," the officer murmured, almost gently. "But you're still the next of kin. You'll need to come back home." Home. The word hit her like a cold hand closing around her throat. She whispered, barely audible, "I can't." But the officer simply exhaled, tired and apologetic. "I wish you had a choice." The call ended. The silence afterward felt unnatural, like something was listening. By noon, Emily was on the road, driving past miles of empty fields, dead trees, and long stretches of grey sky hanging low like a warning. The closer she got to Hollow's Edge, the more her chest tightened. Memories she'd buried years ago clawing their way back. Her father's voice, her mother's scream, the dirt, the rituals. She swallowed hard and focused on the road, knuckles white around the steering wheel. "It's just paperwork," she whispered to herself, almost like a prayer she didn't believe. "Just sign the papers, clean the house, and leave. That's it. That's all." But the moment she crossed the wooden sign reading, "Welcome to Hollow's Edge," a chill swept across her spine, sharp and sudden, as if the town itself inhaled at her arrival. She parked her car at the edge of the old gravel road, the one that led straight to the house she'd tried so hard to forget. The sky hung low and bruised, swollen with clouds that looked like they were seconds away from bursting. The wind carried that sticky, metallic smell that always floated through the town whenever someone had been buried recently. A smell she wished she didn't recognize so well. Emily tightened her grip on her suitcase handle. Okay, breathe," she whispered to herself. But even her own voice sounded shaky, like it was afraid to echo. She took the first step forward, gravel crunching under her boots, and the entire path suddenly felt too long, too quiet, like the world hadn't been waiting for her, but the house had. The old Victorian came into view through the trees, tall, hunched, and coated in layers of peeling paint. The front windows were dark, but she could swear something shifted behind one of them. A flicker, like someone stepping back from the curtain. "Nope, no, don't do this to yourself," she muttered under her breath, but her pulse was already thudding against her ribs. She pushed the front door open. It didn't resist. It welcomed her. A soft draft brushed past her legs like something slipping out. The foyer looked exactly the same. Old wallpaper with faded floral patterns, her mother's wooden chest in the corner, and that dusty chandelier hanging crooked from the ceiling. But the air inside felt heavier, as if it had texture, like layers of memories she didn't want to revisit were stacked on top of each other. As she stepped inside, the floor whispered under her shoes, literal whispering, a faint shh, shh, that she tried to write off as the house settling. It's old. Old houses make noise. Chill. But her skin prickled, goosebumps racing up her arms in a tight shiver. She walked deeper in, her suitcase wheels thudding over the wood. The living room was dim. Only one lamp flicked on, a lamp she hadn't turned on. The light buzzed softly, casting long shadows that didn't feel like they belonged to anything in the room. Emily swallowed. "Dad?" she called out instinctively, even though she knew he wouldn't answer. The silence that followed wasn't natural. It was expectant, like something was listening. Then she noticed the dirt. A thin trail of dried brown soil sprinkled across the floor, stretching from the back door toward the hallway. "Seriously?" she whispered, kneeling a little to touch it. It was dry, fresh, as if someone had walked through the house earlier, someone who had been standing ankle-deep in mud, or worse. Nope, don't go there," she told herself quickly. The moment she straightened up, a noise hit her, a small, sharp tap coming from upstairs. Emily froze. Her breath stalled in her throat. Again. Slow, spaced apart, like footsteps pacing the hall above her. She clenched her jaw. There's no one up there." Her voice cracked when she said it. But then the footsteps stopped, and something else came instead. A voice. "Emily." Her blood turned cold. She staggered back a step, her hand flying to her mouth. No, I'm hearing things," she stammered. But her body wasn't listening. Her legs were trembling like they wanted to bolt. Then the smell hit. Dirt, damp earth, freshly turned soil, the smell of a grave that hadn't settled yet. Emily backed toward the door, heart pounding. "Nope, I'm leaving. I'm actually leaving. Screw this," she whispered through clenched teeth, reaching for the doorknob. But right before her hand touched it, something slammed upstairs. A door. Hard. So hard the walls shook. Emily stood frozen at the bottom of the staircase. Every instinct in her body screamed, "Don't go up there. Run, leave, get out." But another part of her, the part that had come home out of duty, grief, guilt, whispered back, "You need to know. You can't avoid this forever." She forced her foot onto the first step. It creaked, loud, almost accusing. Another step, another groan of old wood. With every movement, the smell of soil grew stronger, thick, damp, suffocating, like a freshly dug grave waiting to be filled. At the top of the stairs, the hallway felt narrower than she remembered. "Dad, what did you leave in this house?" But the hallway didn't answer. It just hummed, a faint vibration in the air. Then she saw the door. Her father's room. The one he always kept locked. The one she wasn't allowed to enter, not even as a child. I shouldn't be doing this," she stammered, but she stepped toward it anyway. The closer she got, the colder the air became. The hallway temperature dropped so rapidly her breath fogged. She wrapped her arms around herself, teeth chattering. "This is so messed up," she muttered. She reached for the knob. Her hand hovered over it. The metal looked wrong. She took one deep breath, then curled her fingers around it. It clicked. Unlocked. Her father had never left it unlocked. She pushed the door open, slowly, and it creaked in a long, painful screech. The room inside was dim, illuminated only by a line of weak light slipping through the blinds. Dust danced in the air like ash. Everything smelled like old books, stale sweat, and dirt. So much dirt. There was a cot in the corner, sheets still unmade, like he'd left in a hurry and never returned. Papers were scattered across the desk. But what pulled Emily's eyes, what made her body go rigid, was the notebook sitting in the center of the table. Black leather, old, edges frayed. Her father's handwriting carved deeply into the cover. Final whispers. Emily stepped closer, legs trembling uncontrollably. Her fingertips hovered over the cover. She murmured, "What were you doing, Dad?" before gently opening it. The pages were filled, cramped handwriting running line after line, date after date. Names, ritual instructions, notes scribbled in panic. One page had dried mud smeared across the bottom, as if he'd touched it with filthy hands. Then she saw the most recent entry. "Emily, do not come home. Your mother's whisper was never completed. Her grave will not stay quiet." Emily's breath shattered. Her vision blurred. Her chest tightened with a sharp, tearing panic. What do you mean?" she whispered, voice cracking, tears burning behind her eyes. "Dad, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you?" The sound cut her off. A soft tap from the closet behind her, then another, then... slow, deliberate, like a fingernail dragging across wood. Emily froze, spine stiffening, breath locked in her throat. Every muscle in her body begged her to run, scream, move. But she couldn't. Not even when she heard it again. "Emily." This time clearer, closer, inside the closet. Her eyes widened. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her knees buckled beneath her. The closet door trembled. Then again. Then harder. Violently, as if something inside was trying to claw its way out. Emily stumbled backward. "Stop! Stop!" But the door kept shaking, rattling in its frame, hinges whining like they were about to rip free. The smell of earth flooded the room, thick and choking. The notebook slipped from her hands, falling open on the floor. Her mother's name stared up at her from the page. The closet became silent, still, waiting. Emily backed toward the hallway, shaking uncontrollably, heart slamming against her ribs. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't stay. Then the closet door slowly creaked open on its own. Emily bolted. She sprinted out of the room, down the hall and down the stairs so fast she nearly tumbled. Tears blurred her vision as she hit the bottom floor, gripping the railing like her life depended on it. Because something had stepped out of that closet. Something she didn't dare look at. Something that had whispered her name in her mother's voice. And it wasn't done with her. Emily stumbled into the living room, gasping, hands trembling uncontrollably. She pressed her back against the wall, chest heaving. "God, what is happening? What is happening?" Voice breaking. Her eyes darted to the staircase, half expecting something to peer down at her from the landing. Nothing moved. No footsteps. No voice. But she could feel something, a weight in the air, like invisible eyes trailing down her neck, skating over her shoulders. Watching. Waiting. She pushed off the wall, hugging her arms around herself. "I need to get out. I need to leave." She grabbed her suitcase, yanking it upright, but the wheels didn't budge. She pulled harder. The suitcase resisted, as if stuck on something. Confused, she looked down. No, don't start," she whispered anxiously. She yanked the handle again, harder. The suitcase suddenly slid free, as if something had released it. "I'm going. I don't care. Dad, forgive me, but I'm done," she choked out. She sprinted toward the front door and gripped the knob. It didn't turn. She twisted harder. Nothing. Her panic surged. "Open! Open!" she shouted, slamming her palm against the door. She tried the deadbolt, but it slid back on its own, locking itself with a sharp click. Emily screamed and stumbled away from the door. The house had just locked her in, on purpose. A sudden wave of nausea washed over her. Her skin crawled. Then her phone buzzed. She lunged for her pocket, hands shaking so hard she nearly dropped it. The screen lit up. One new voice message. She didn't recognize the number. No name attached, no location. She tapped the voicemail. A static hiss filled her ear, then a faint dragging sound, like fabric scraping over dirt. Emily winced. "What is this? Who is—" Then she heard it. A whisper, low, breathless, unmistakably familiar. "Emily, come home." Her mother's voice. Her knees buckled. The phone slipped from her grip and clattered onto the hardwood. No, she's gone. She's gone," Emily cried, shaking her head violently. But the voicemail kept playing. "You left me. Don't leave again." Emily screamed, "Stop it!" and stomped the phone with her heel, ending the message with a sharp crack. But the echo of her mother's voice remained lodged in her ears, like a ghost that refused to fade. A hollow thud shook the ceiling above her. Emily froze, tears drying on her cheeks as fear swallowed her whole. Another thud, heavy, slow, coming from the second floor, directly over the living room. Then the footsteps began, deliberate, dragging, crossing the upstairs hallway, moving toward the top of the stairs. Emily clapped a hand over her mouth. Her entire body trembled. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe too loud. The footsteps reached the top step, stopped, waited. She forced her eyes toward the staircase, terrified of what she'd see. The shadows shifted. Long fingers curled around the banister. Not human, not alive. Covered in dirt, caked beneath the nails, bits of grass tangled in the skin. Emily choked on a scream and backed away until she hit the far wall. "Please, please, please," she whispered through broken breaths. Something stepped into view at the top of the stairs. A silhouette, gaunt, tilted, its head hanging at a sick, unnatural angle. Emily shut her eyes tightly, shaking her head, tears streaming. "This isn't real. It isn't real. Please." But it spoke. Emily. Emily's eyes snapped open, and she ran. She sprinted toward the kitchen, toward the back door, toward anything that wasn't this. Her footsteps echoed wildly as she fled, and behind her, something began descending the stairs, knowing she couldn't escape. Emily crashed into the kitchen, nearly slipping on the old linoleum tile as she scrambled for the back door. Her hands shook so violently she could barely grip the knob. "Please, please, just open," she begged, twisting it again and again. This time, unlike the front door, it turned. The lock clicked. The door creaked open half an inch. A cold breath of night air slid across her skin. Emily didn't question it, didn't think. She shoved the door wide and sprinted outside. The backyard greeted her with darkness so thick it felt like smoke. The tall trees swayed, their branches creaking like old bones. The wind carried a strange smell. Not just dirt this time, but something older, rotten at the edges, metallic. Emily gagged, pressing a hand to her mouth. "God, what is that?" she whispered, eyes burning. Her feet sank into the damp soil as she moved across the yard. The grass brushed against her legs, cold and wet, clinging like tiny hands trying to pull her down. She shoved past them, heading straight for the gate at the far end. If she could get through it, get to the street, she could. A growl curled through the trees. "Emily." She froze mid-step, heart dropping into her stomach. The voice wasn't behind her. It wasn't inside the house. It was somewhere deeper in the yard. "No, no, not out here too," she whimpered, shaking her head. She kept walking, forcing her legs to move. But then she saw it. A figure stood in front of her. Emily froze. Her breath hitched painfully. The darkness clung to the figure like a shroud, tall, thin, head tilted. She whispered, barely audible, "Mom?" The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, staring with hollow stillness. Emily took one shaky step back. "Please, please don't." The figure stepped forward, not walking, sliding, its feet dragging through the soil with a soft, horrifying scrape. Emily screamed and bolted toward the back gate. Her feet slipped, skidding through the wet earth as she pushed herself upright. The gate loomed ahead, crooked, rusted, but still the only way out. She grabbed the latch, yanked it up. Snap. It broke off in her hand. "Oh my God, no," Emily sobbed, throwing her shoulder against the gate. It didn't budge. She hit it again and again until her arms burned. "Let me out! Please! Let me go!" The sound behind her grew louder. That dragging, that scrapping of weight through dirt. Coming closer. Closer. Emily spun around, chest heaving, and her heart stopped. The figure was only steps away now, half illuminated by the moonlight. Its head hung at that same impossible angle. Mud streaked its thin arms, dripping in clumps. And its hands were shaking, not with rage, but with longing. "Emily," it whispered. Emily backed into the gate, trembling violently. "Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mom, I was just a kid. I didn't mean to leave you. I didn't." The figure stopped. Its head twitched upright with a crack, its eyes, cloudy, lifeless, fixed on her. Emily didn't remember running, only the cold slam of terror pushing her forward. Branches whipped at her arms as she bolted from the backyard, lungs burning, eyes stinging with tears she didn't bother wiping away. The shadow, the thing wearing her mother's face, it still lingered behind her eyes, a smear of grief and malice she couldn't shake. She stumbled up the steps, nearly collapsing against the back door before shoving it open with shaking hands. The house wasn't safe. She knew it wasn't, but it was the only place she could breathe without feeling grave soil under her feet. Inside, the lights flickered weakly, as if unsure they still belonged to this world. Emily slammed the lock, sagging against the wood, her breath coming in sharp, broken gasps. "Dad," she whispered without meaning to, the words slipping out like an old wound reopening. Something about the ghost's presence, something in its eyes, had stirred a memory she wasn't ready for, a memory tied to him. Fear fueled her steps as she crossed into the living room, needing answers more than she needed safety. Her father was the only thread left, the only one who might explain why the dead were suddenly clawing at her life, and why her mother's spirit looked at her with so much anger. She didn't want to go deeper into the house, but she needed the truth even more. Emily sat cross-legged on the living room floor, her father's old journals sprawled open across her lap. A single lamp flickered beside her. She flipped to the section she'd avoided since the moment she found it. Her breath caught when she saw her mother's name written in Samuel's messy, hurried handwriting, circled 3 times, almost as if he carved the ink in while shaking. Helena Carter. Final attempt. Emily whispered the words under her breath, her voice cracking as the letters blurred in her eyes. Her fingers trembled as she traced the lines below. Samuel had written about the ritual as if it were a storm he couldn't outrun. Failed. Interference during the 3rd step. Spirit unstable, restless. The child was present. The child shouldn't have been there. Emily froze. She had interfered. Her throat tightened, and she whispered to the empty room, "Dad, what did I do?" A cold breeze swept through the house, though no window was open, like something exhaled right behind her. Then the flashback hit her, hard, violent, like a door she'd kept locked for years had just been kicked open. She was 8 again, the night her mother died. She remembered the candles around the bed, her mother lying pale and still. She remembered Samuel's frantic whispers, the way his hands shook while holding a small bowl of soil. And she remembered stepping closer, touching the bowl. Her mother's eyes snapping open, wide, white, terrified, before the entire room plunged into darkness. Emily grabbed her head with both hands now. No, I didn't mean to. I didn't know. Her voice cracked into a sob. The air shifted, heavy, suffocating. Emily looked up, and there in the far corner of the room stood a silhouette, tall, motionless. Its head tilted the same way her mother used to when watching Emily play piano. Emily's pulse hammered as the figure stepped deeper into the lamplight, just enough to reveal the outline of a woman, hair falling over her face, arms dangling at her sides. Emily choked out, "Mom?" The shadow didn't move, yet Emily felt its anger, its grief, its longing pressing down on her chest like a weight. The shadow lifted its head just slightly, slow, deliberate, and Emily heard it. Not with her ears, but with something deeper. A whisper, low, broken, echoing from a memory she never meant to remember. "Why did you stop me?" Emily clapped a hand over her mouth as tears streaked down her cheeks. I didn't know. Mom, I didn't know what he was doing, she begged, like the child she had once been. The shadow flickered, trembling between sorrow and fury. Emily scrambled backward on the floor, heart galloping wildly, journal pages fluttering from the sudden movement. The shadow stepped forward just once, only once, but the floorboards beneath its feet groaned as if something heavy had pressed down. Emily whispered, "Please, I'm trying to understand. I'm trying." The shadow slowly retreated, dissolving back into the darkness of the corner like smoke sucked into a void, leaving the chilling scent of soil behind. Emily wiped her trembling hands on her jeans, staring at the journal again. The truth was unmistakable now. She had disrupted the ritual that night. Her interference had trapped her mother between worlds, turning her into the restless force haunting Hollow's Edge. And Samuel had spent the rest of his life trying to undo the damage Emily caused. The weight of that knowledge crushed her, pressing into her ribs, making it hard to breathe.
"Mom, I'm so sorry."
The lamp flickered once more, almost like a response, or a warning. But Emily squared her shoulders, forced herself to take a breath, and closed the journal with trembling resolve. If her mother was watching, if she was still here, then Emily couldn't run anymore. She wiped her tears, whispering through clenched teeth, "I'll finish what he couldn't. I'll free you. I promise." Emily barely slept. Every time she drifted off, she felt her mother's shadow leaning over her, breathing against her cheek, whispering through fractured memory. By morning, her nerves were frayed, her throat raw from crying, her hands still shaking as she clutched the journal. She paced the living room. Mrs. Wyatt knows something. She has to. Each step felt heavier, as if the house tried holding her back. When she stepped outside, the air was cold. Birds stayed silent. Even the trees didn't move. Emily hugged her arms around herself. This town is dying. She didn't know if she meant the place or everything inside it. She hurried toward Mrs. Wyatt's home, the journal tucked under her arm like a terrible secret. Mrs. Wyatt's door creaked open before Emily even knocked. Slow, deliberate, like someone had been waiting on the other side. The old woman's eyes narrowed the moment she saw Emily's face. "You look pale, child," she said, but there was a tension beneath her voice, something cautious. Emily stepped inside, swallowing hard. "I need answers," she said, "about my dad, about my mother, about what happened." Mrs. Wyatt sighed, then locked the door behind them with a soft click. Emily placed the journal on the dining table and slid it toward her. "Tell me what he was doing," she demanded. "Tell me what he tried to fix." Mrs. Wyatt opened the book, eyes scanning the scribbled entries, her expression sinking into something like sorrow. "Samuel should have never attempted that ritual alone," she whispered. "He was a good man, but pride makes fools of all of us." Emily leaned in, pulse quickening. "He said I interfered, that my mother's spirit became unstable. What does that mean?" Her voice cracked, desperate. The old woman closed the journal with a trembling hand. "Your father was obsessed, Emily," she confessed. "Ever since Helena fell ill, he feared losing her spirit more than her body. The ritual was meant to ease her passing, to guide her safely. But he rushed it. He was terrified. And when you entered the room that night..." Mrs. Wyatt paused, her eyes glistening. "You broke the boundary. The veil collapsed. Helena became stuck." Emily recoiled, breath hitching. "So this is my fault," she whispered, horrified. Mrs. Wyatt reached for her hand, gentle but firm. No, you were a child. It was Samuel's responsibility to protect both of you. Then her tone sharpened, voice dropping low. But the ritual, once broken, it cannot be undone by ordinary means. Your mother's spirit grew violent because she was trapped in both worlds, and Samuel spent the rest of his life trying to calm her, keep her contained, complete what he failed. Emily's chest tightened. "Is that what killed him?" she asked, voice trembling with fear she already knew the answer to. The room went quiet. Too quiet. Mrs. Wyatt finally whispered, "Yes." The word cut straight into Emily like a blade. "Helena, your mother, she was the one who ended his life. Not out of malice, but out of unbearable suffering. The spirit grows stronger with pain and confusion." Emily stumbled back from the table, hand pressed to her mouth. Tears filled her eyes, spilling before she could stop them. "She killed him because of me," she whispered, almost choking. Then something slammed against the wall behind them, hard, violent. Emily jolted, and Mrs. Wyatt grabbed her arm. "She's here," the old woman hissed. "She's been here since you stepped inside." Emily turned slowly, dread crawling up her spine. A shadow spread along the wall, tall, feminine, distorted. Emily whispered, "Mom, please." But the shadow twitched, convulsing like it was fighting itself, broken, torn between reaching out and ripping something apart. Mrs. Wyatt pushed Emily toward the front door. "Go! Leave! Now!" Emily shook her head, tears streaming. "She's hurting. She's angry. I need to understand." The old woman snapped, voice sharp and commanding. "Understanding won't save you, Emily." The table shook. The lamp shattered. The shadow stretched across the ceiling like a storm. Emily screamed and stumbled out the door, just as the house lights flickered wildly behind her. Outside, she collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. Her mother's presence still hovered, watching, burning holes into her back. Emily clutched the journal to her chest. I'm remembering everything I wasn't ready to." A cold wind swept over her, and for a split second, she heard her mother again. Closer, harsher. Finish what he started. Emily trembled violently, because now she knew she had no choice. She came back to her home with a resolve to put an end to all of this. She sat on the floor of the living room, the journal opened wide in front of her, its brittle pages glowing faintly in the candlelight. She wiped her face with her sleeve and whispered to herself, Okay, Emily. Dad left the steps. You can do this. You have to." Her voice cracked, but there was something new beneath the fear. Determination. The ritual's title stared up at her like an accusation. The Final Whisper. Beneath it, Samuel's desperate handwriting outlined every step, jagged and frantic. Step 1, acknowledgement, and then confession, and at the end, release. Emily ran her fingers over the words, whispering, "You really tried, didn't you, Dad? You broke yourself trying." Her eyes burned as tears threatened again, but she blinked them away. She couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not when she finally understood what was happening. The spirits didn't want to destroy her. They wanted her to finish what Samuel never could. She grabbed her coat and flashlight, shoving the journal inside her bag. The moment she stepped outside, the cold hit her like a slap. Sharp, unnatural, almost metallic. Fog rolled across the ground in thick waves, swirling around her ankles as she walked toward the cemetery. It felt like the entire town was watching her, every dark window hiding something unseen. Emily clenched her fists, breath trembling. "Please don't follow me." But they did. Shadows drifted behind her, dozens of them, silent, patient, hopeful. Emily reached the cemetery with a shaky breath, her flashlight flickering like it was scared too. The air felt thick, heavier than any night before. The trees loomed in twisted silhouettes, their branches swaying even though the wind had gone completely still. It was as if the whole place was holding its breath, waiting for her, expecting her. She reached the far edge of the grounds, the part she always avoided as a child, and her chest tightened the moment she saw it. Her mother's grave. The marble slab was cracked straight down the center, the soil around it sunken inward like something beneath had clawed its way out. Emily's legs trembled, and she whispers, "I'm here, Mom. I'm here now." A cold gust swept through her, swirling the fallen leaves around her feet, and suddenly the silence broke. Dozens of whispering voices rose from the darkness, fractured, desperate, layered over each other like a chorus of broken memories. Shadows drifted between the gravestones, the spirits that had been following her, guiding her, begging her. Their faces were pale, blurred, unfinished. Emily stepped closer, the ground crunching softly. Okay, I can do this," she muttered, trying to steady her voice. She swallowed hard, then knelt beside the cracked grave. Her fingers brushed the shattered stone, and something cold pulsed beneath it. A heartbeat that didn't belong to the living. She climbed down into the hollowed grave. The earth crumbled under her boots, and the scent of damp soil filled her lungs. Above her, the spirits gathered like a storm of translucent silhouettes, drifting into a circle. Their whispers aligned, no longer chaotic, but guiding, urging. Emily closed her eyes and began reciting the sacred whisper she'd deciphered from Samuel's journal. Her voice echoed off the grave walls, each word vibrating through the ground. The air grew frigid, the world dimmed. The shadows stretched deeper than shadows should. Then, a figure rose from the fractured earth in front of her. Her mother's spirit. Not the soft face she remembered from childhood, but a form twisted by years of unrest, eyes hollow yet burning with grief, her silhouette flickering like tattered smoke. Emily's breath hitched, and she whispered, "Mom, please, listen to me." The spirit hovered, trembling, as if holding back a storm of emotion. Emily felt her chest cave inward. I remember now," she confessed, her voice cracking. "I was the reason the ritual failed. I was just a kid. I didn't understand. I ruined it. I trapped you here." Her throat tightened with shame. "I'm so sorry. I'm begging you. Forgive me." Her mother's face contorted. Pain, anger, longing, all fighting beneath the surface. The cemetery roared with a sudden rush of wind, the spirits around them turning frantic, swirling faster and faster as Emily held her ground. "Please," she whispered again, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Let me fix this." The spirit's expression softened, barely, but enough. She drifted closer until Emily could almost feel her icy presence against her skin. Her mother reached out, her hand trembling, the whisper of her voice barely forming, waiting, allowing. Emily raised her hands, steadying her breath despite the fear shaking through her bones. This was it. The final step Samuel never completed. The moment the curse had been waiting decades for. End. And with every spirit watching, every whisper tightening in the air, Emily began the final lines of the ritual, ready to restore what had been broken. The last line of the ritual trembled from Emily's lips, each word threading through the graveyard like a pulse of light, cutting through decades of darkness. The storm of spirits froze in mid-air, suspended, weightless, listening. The ground beneath her hummed, the cracked grave shifting, as though the earth itself exhaled after years of holding tension. Emily looked up at her mother's spirit, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. "Please," she pleaded, "be free." Her voice wavered, but the intention behind it didn't. She reached out, palms open, offering acceptance, confession, and release, everything the ritual demanded, and everything she had denied for years. Her mother's form flickered violently, struggling against the rage and hurt that had kept her chained to this place. Then, slowly, painfully, the shadows peeled away from her, drifting upward like soot in a rising flame. Her expression softened into something Emily hadn't seen since childhood, gentle, tired, but finally at peace. The spirit leaned close. For a second, Emily felt the faintest brush of warmth on her cheek, like a ghost of a mother's touch lost to time. A farewell wrapped in love and regret. The grave erupted in a soft burst of light, not blinding but warm, spreading across the cemetery like dawn seeping through fog. One by one, the spirits dissolved into it, their blurred faces smoothing into serenity as they drifted upward. They weren't screaming anymore. They weren't begging. They were finally going home. The earth settled beneath Emily, the cracked grave stitching itself silently, stone meeting stone, soil smoothing out, as though the past had folded neatly back into place. The whispers faded, the cold loosened, and for the first time since Samuel's death, the cemetery felt still. Emily climbed out slowly, her body trembling, tears drying on her cheeks. The night air tasted different, lighter, clean. She glanced back once more at her mother's grave. No flickering shadows, no restless presence, just silence. A silence that felt like closure. By the time she reached the gate, the sky had begun to shift, a faint line of pink and gold spilling across the horizon. Dawn. Her footsteps echoed softly on the path, and even the old trees seemed less hostile, their branches moving with natural wind instead of whispers. She reached into her pocket and pulled out Samuel's journal. The cover was worn, the pages frayed, but the weight of it felt different now. Not a burden, but a responsibility accepted. She murmured, "I'll take it from here." As Emily walked home, a gentle breeze brushed her ear. Not cold, not eerie, but warm, almost affectionate. And carried on that breeze was a faint whisper, softer than a sigh, but unmistakable. Goodbye. Her mother's voice, free at last. Emily didn't turn back. She didn't need to. The curse was broken. But the past, she knew, would always linger in the edges of memory. Not to haunt her, but to remind her of the quiet duty she now carried. The town's new grave attendant walked into the rising sun, the cemetery behind her finally resting in the silence it deserved. Thanks for sipping tonight's tale with Haunted Brew. Don't forget to subscribe, and sleep tight if you still can.